Welcome to this episode of the Outdoor Gear Review. I hope you're doing well. What I have here is a Naturehike stove. This is a dual burner stove. Basically, this transforms. It opens up, exposing two burner heads. This is an isobutane stove. The price on this is really good, especially when you compare it to its closest competition, the Jetboil Genesis. I purchased this roughly 6 months ago. I've been testing it out since then. And since that point in time, I've questioned whether or not I was going to review this product, because there's a catch when it comes to this stove. It is not available in the United States. With that being said though, you can find this stove online and it's easy to order, but it could take some time for it to arrive. That's because you have to order it from AliExpress. At least that's the case here in the United States. I'm not sure how it is in Europe. But if you're in the US and you're interested in this stove, locating it on AliExpress is likely the only bet. While I've been testing this product out, you all have seen this in numerous adventures. I've used this countless times in countless adventures in a variety of weather conditions, temperature ranges, and so on. Time and time again, I receive questions and comments about this stove, whether or not I was going to review it. Thanks to all of the interest in this stove, I am here today to share with you all the pros and cons that I have for this system. To open up the stove, it's very simple. You have a latch here, flip it up, and then open. From here you can see the two burner heads, 1 and 2. You also receive 2 pot supports. This is what they look like. Basically you have square-shaped pot supports. They are elevated in the center. And for the most part, you can put any size cup or pot or pan on these. With the pot supports, they can go one of 2 ways. On top, ready to use, or you could flip it over, and that is ready to fold up in store mode. I almost forgot, everyone, there is one more item that's included with this stove, and basically it's a hot plate. I did use this item one time and it made such a mess I decided never to use it again, but it is included with the stove. Looking at the front of the stove, you have igniters, and you also have the adjusters. Then you have the hose that connects to the isobutane canister. Up here you have an on-off valve. And it should be mentioned that this hose attachment can be taken off and stored. With the detachable hose and the on-off valve, it's roughly 13 inches long. Going back to the burner heads for a second, let's talk about the fact that there's no windscreen with this stove. You have the igniters, the burner head, but no windscreens. And each of these burner heads are roughly 3 inches wide. Taking a look at the bottom of the stove, you can see that it features rubber feet on both burners. You have a grab handle on one burner, and you have a lot of cutouts for ventilation and cooling. Before I begin going over the pros and cons that I have for this stove, let's touch upon the stats real quick. So again, this is a 2-burner stove. It is from Naturehike. This is what they call the double burner folding stove. Each burner offers 7,900 BTUs. It is fueled by isobutane. The weight of this is 4.7 pounds. When it comes to the measurements, when it's folded, 10.5 inches long, 8.5 inches wide, and it's roughly 5 inches thick. When the stove is fully opened, it is 21 inches long, 8.5 inches wide, and roughly 3 inches thick. When it comes to the materials, you're looking at a combination of cold rolled plate, stainless steel, iron, and aluminum, along with some plastic, and I guess some rubber for the feet. Now everyone, we need to talk about the price. This is going to vary depending on the seller that you find on AliExpress. At the time of filming, I found it for as cheap as $85, but the shipping was like 45 bucks. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Most of the sellers that were offering the stove were selling it for $120 with free shipping. I also saw some sellers selling it for $140. I would say in general the going rate is around $120. Now let's go over the pros and cons that I have for this system, starting with the pros. As I'm going over these, I will be showing you all footage of me using this stove, and also of the pros and cons, the issues that I have with it. With the pros, the first one is that this is a fantastic stove. It really does work well, it performs well, and it's a fully functional dual burner stove. It does everything that you would expect from this stove with no real issues. Each of the burners offer plenty of BTUs. This is not the most powerful stove system out there, but then again, you have to consider the price, $120. With that being said though, the stove offers plenty of BTUs to accomplish whatever it is that you want to do. Boil water, cook food, simmer, so on and so forth. Next folks, the quality of this stove is excellent. The materials and the construction. There's no issues when it comes to edges, the cuts, nothing like that. Everything's smooth. The materials themselves are of a good quality. There's nothing about this stove, in my opinion, that's flimsy or could be an issue in the future. It's well built, it's solid, and at the same time, it doesn't weigh a ton. Yeah, it's somewhat heavy, but it is a dual burner stove. The next pro that I have for this system is price, and I've talked about this at the very beginning of this episode. The price of this system, when you compare it to the competition, is fantastic. Speaking of which, the closest competition is the Jetboil Genesis, which I have to say does look pretty sweet. I like the color combo, but that system is $400. Folks, $400, and it does nothing different than this one here. This is 120 bucks, maybe $100, maybe a little bit more depending on what the pricing is on AliExpress, but nonetheless, this stove system costs a whole lot less than the Jetboil Genesis. In my opinion, the price of the Genesis makes no sense, but this does. Again, it's not the most powerful stove out there, but it does everything that I need it to do. I can boil water, I can make coffee, I can cook food, I can simmer. It does it all. It's very easy to deploy, quick to deploy. Basically, you unlatch it, unfold it, you flip the pot supports, you attach the fuel, turn it on, adjust the power, hit the igniter, and you're good to go. You can do all of this in less than a minute. Next, I have to say that I really like the form factor for this stove. It's small, it's compact, then it opens up, and you have a fully functional dual burner kitchen. At the same time, this is a very stable platform. Not once have I ever had this thing teeter-totter or anything like that. The rubber feet on the bottom, they're all spaced apart enough so that you have a very stable platform. This is a system that's great for camping. It's great for overlanding. Naturehike does like to speak of this product being used for backpacking and hiking. I don't know. For most people, I'd say no. Most people aren't going to carry a 5-pound stove with them plus fuel. Do what you want to, but for myself, I'm not going to do it. For overlanding, truck camping, car camping, this makes a lot of sense. Next, folks, I'm sure you're wondering, what about fuel efficiency? This is something that I've not tracked with this stove, and it's not really something that I track with any stove. And that's because it's virtually pointless. I can give you all some stats that would mean absolutely nothing for you, because there's just too many variables involved when it comes to reporting such numbers. It should be mentioned that there's no universal standard when it comes to measuring fuel efficiency with stoves. And that's because there's so many variables involved. I can give you numbers and they would simply mean absolutely nothing. Overall fuel efficiency based upon air temperature, wind, fuel temperature, what level you're running the stove on, and so on. There's just too many variables involved. I can tell you that with my experiences with this stove, it has seemed to be very fuel efficient. Not once have I thought that I was going through the fuel quickly or anything like that. In other ways, everything has seemed absolutely normal and goes hand in hand with what I would expect with a stove like this. The next pro that I have for this system are the pot supports. They are excellent, they are stable, and they will support just about any pot or pan that you put on here. I've not come across any pot or pan or kettle that won't fit on here. I do have to say that some cups may not fit on this. So if you have a small backpacking titanium cup, it may not sit on top of those pot supports. But outside of that, everything else will. Overall, the performance of this stove is excellent. Again, I've had no issues when it comes to boiling water for coffee, boiling water for food, frying something, simmering something. All in all, the performance of this stove is excellent. When it comes to using the igniter, it always works, eventually. I'll get back to this in just a second. And that takes us over to the last pro that I have for this stove, and that's color. I do like the color combination of this system. The green, the black, I think it looks really nice. It's right up my alley, in other words. What about yours? What color would you like to see this stove in? Comment down below. When it comes to the cons that I have for this system, first off, no carry case or bag is included with this. So it's one of those things where you would likely want to find something for it to fit into. I have not yet found the perfect bag yet, so if you come across one, send me an email and let me know. I would appreciate it. Next, everyone, let's talk about those igniters. Eventually, they do work. But I've noticed in some situations, you crank it up, click, 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 click. In some cases, it'll be 6 clicks of the igniter before it ignites. Sometimes it'll only be 1. In the end, they have always worked, but you never know on what click it will ignite. I've already mentioned this, everyone, but this stove offers no wind resistance at all. So if you plan to use this in windy conditions, make sure you have a windscreen of some sort with you. Biggest issue that I have with this system are the regulators themselves when it comes to like adjusting the intensity of the output. It's very easy to go all the way up, but it's difficult to go down into simmer. I have found that there's quite a bit of rebounding when it comes to that adjuster when you go down to simmer. So let's say that you're up high, you crank it down to simmer, the performance will dip down and then come right back up. So you're constantly doing these micro adjustments to get it to simmer. If you're using one burner at a time, an easy way to make these adjustments is the on-off valve. You can begin to close that and adjust the performance of the stove itself, and you can bypass the regulator. That only works though if you're using one burner. If you're using 2, you'll just have to find the sweet spot, and it may take some time to get it accurately adjusted. The last con that I have for this stove is the fact that it's not available in the United States. I did reach out to Naturehike about this, and they stated that there was some sort of issue when it comes to technology that was preventing it from being sold here. So I'm sure it's some sort of like patent or something like that. In the end, I have no idea. But I can say that for some people, they're not going to want to order from AliExpress. I get this. I totally do. For myself, I've never had an issue from ordering from that company. Yes, it takes some time, maybe 2-3 weeks for your product to arrive, but in my experiences, the product has always arrived. And that is certainly the case with the Naturehike stove. Speaking of which, I purchased that roughly 6 months ago, and at the time I paid $80 for it, and I got free shipping. And that takes us over to the summary for this stove. For what I paid for this stove, I'm quite happy with it. Even if you had to pay $120, I think this makes a lot of sense. This is a good performing stove. It's not perfect, but it has no real issues, no real cons. All of the issues that I've mentioned can be worked around rather easily. Comparing this to the Genesis, in my opinion, this just makes so much more sense. The Genesis is a very nice system. I've personally used it. A friend of mine has it. I do like it, but I'd rather pay $120 for a stove compared to $400. I mean, $400 is a ton of money. You can buy a stove like this, $120. You could buy a bunch of pots. You could buy some food. You could even go out on a cheap trip and probably have money left over. You know what I mean? In the end, it's all about what you want, right? If someone wants to pay $400 for the Genesis, go for it. It's slick. But if you want to save some money and purchase something that performs almost as good, this is certainly an option for you. That wraps up my review of the Naturehike double burner folding stove. Make sure to comment down below, share your thoughts. What do you all think about this stove? Would you purchase it? Do you have any issues when it comes to purchasing from AliExpress? Have you had any problems? For myself, I've ordered maybe a couple dozen products over the years, and I've never had any issues. Sometimes you have to wait 2 weeks. Sometimes it's 4 weeks. But in the end, the product has always arrived, at least for myself. If you have found this episode helpful, hit the thumbs up. It helps a lot. If you want to support a channel that's agenda-free, Patreon, YouTube, oh yeah, you can join the Wolf Pack. The channel is agenda-free, folks. That means I'm not here to sell products. I don't do product placement. I'm here to share information, and that's it. I purchased this product with my own money, just like I do with 99% of the products that you see here on the channel. So if you want to support a channel that's not full of shit, you could do so with the Outdoor Gear Review. I appreciate it. Everyone, take care, be well, strength and honor. Bye for now.